The trade is closed. You made the right call. You followed the rules. You waited for the setup, entered clean, managed the position exactly the way you practiced, and it's still lost. You're sitting there now, screen still open, and something is happening that has nothing to do with the chart. A thought is forming, not about the trade, about what the trade means, about whether you're cut out for this, about the 3 months you've spent on this, about what you told yourself this year was going to look like, about the version of yourself you were supposed to be by now. That thought right there, in the 2 seconds after the loss, that is the only thing actually standing between you and the next stage. Not your strategy, not your risk management, not the number of hours you've logged on the charts. That thought. And here's what nobody tells you about the 5 stages every trader moves through. Most people think the stages are about skill, about how much you know, about how disciplined your entries are. They're not. Every stage is defined by what you need a trade to tell you about yourself. And until you see that clearly, really see it, not just nod at it, you will keep circling the same stage no matter how much you learn. Think about the first time you blew an account. Not the mechanics of it, not the specific currency pair or the leverage or the news event that moved against you. The feeling right before. There was a moment, somewhere in the middle of that losing streak, where the trade stopped being a trade. It became something else entirely. A test, a referendum on whether you were smart enough. Whether you'd made the right choice quitting that job, or telling your friend this was going to work, or spending 3 months studying setups at midnight while everyone else was sleeping. The position had a lot riding on it. None of it was money. That's the gambler stage. Not because of the randomness, though the randomness is there. Not because of the lack of strategy, though that's there too. It's the gambler stage because of what you needed the outcome to confirm. You needed the market to tell you something about yourself. And you entered the trade before you even knew that was happening. Every gambler believes they're making a calculated decision. In the moment, it genuinely feels that way. But underneath the analysis, underneath the reasoning you'd give someone if they asked why you entered, there's a need running much older than the trade. A need to be right, to be chosen, to be the kind of person this works for. The market has no opinion on any of that. It never did. You moved into learning. You found strategies. You started watching everything. YouTube tutorials at 6 a.m., forum threads that went nowhere, courses that promised edge and delivered vocabulary. Your chart looked like someone had spilled a box of colored markers across it, moving averages crossing other moving averages, zones stacked on zones, arrows pointing in 4 directions at once. And there was something almost comforting about that. All those lines meant you were doing something, taking it seriously, building something real, not gambling anymore, except the losses kept coming. Different reasons each time. New reasons. You'd fix one thing and something else would crack. You'd solve the entry and lose on the exit. You'd nail the exit and find out your position size was wrong. There was always one more thing to fix. The expectation you'd quietly built, that more knowledge would mean more control, that understanding the market would eventually make it predictable, kept not being met. Every new system carried the same silent promise. This one will be the one. This one will finally make you consistent. This one will close the distance between who you are right now and who you were supposed to become when you started this. That gap. Between the version of yourself you imagined, profitable, calm, free, and the person who is actually sitting at this desk, 2 years in, still not there. That gap is doing more to your trading than any indicator ever could. But there's something underneath the gap that's harder to see. Something that doesn't go away when you find a better strategy. Something that followed you out of the gambler stage and into the learner stage, and will follow you straight into the survivor stage if you haven't already noticed it. It has to do with what you actually came here for, not the money, deeper than that, something the money was supposed to prove. The survivor stage is where most people stay the longest. Not because they're not trying, because they're trying in exactly the wrong direction. You have a strategy now, a real one. It has rules, a defined edge, a track record on paper that makes sense. You've had weeks where everything clicked, the entries were clean, the trades ran, the account moved in the right direction, and for a few days you felt like you'd finally figured something out. And then one morning, the same setup, the same rules, the same execution, and the market does something sharp and fast, and your stop gets taken out before the move even develops. You close the platform, you make coffee. You sit there thinking, what did I miss? Not a question, a statement directed inward, an accusation. You go back through the chart. You look for the thing you should have seen. Sometimes you find something, a wick, a level, a sign, and you feel the specific relief of having an explanation. A reason that makes the loss your fault in a way you can fix. Because a loss you caused is better than a loss that just happened. A loss you caused means next time you'll know better. The next trade carries that weight. It's already slightly heavier before you've even entered. You're not just trading the setup anymore. You're trading to fix what happened this morning. To prove the morning was an anomaly. To restore something that got taken from you. You might not call it that, but your position size is a little bigger than the rules say. Your stop is a little tighter than the setup requires. You're watching the chart with an intensity that has nothing to do with reading price and everything to do with needing the trade to go your way. The market doesn't know any of this. It's doing exactly what it was going to do. You're the only one in the room who changed. That's the survivor stage compressed into one morning. But here's the part that takes most traders years to see, and some never see it at all. The move from survivor to enlightened isn't made on a winning trade. It isn't made on a losing trade either. It's made in a moment so small you could miss it completely. It doesn't announce itself. There's no click, no revelation, nothing that feels like a breakthrough when it's happening. It's just a Tuesday afternoon where something slightly different occurs. You don't graduate from one stage to the next by learning more. You graduate by losing something. Specifically, you lose the belief that a trade can tell you who you are. The enlightened stage isn't about patience. That's how it gets described in every trading psychology article: develop patience, trust the process, think long-term. But that framing misses what's actually happening. It's something quieter than patience. It's more like recognition. It's the moment a losing trade closes and you actually notice, in real time, that the thought trying to form in your head is not about the trade. It never was. It's about you. About what this means. About the story that's been running underneath every session you've ever traded. And you see it clearly enough that it loses a little of its grip. Not gone, still there. But visible now in a way it wasn't before. That's the whole shift. The trade closes. The story tries to start. And you catch it one beat earlier than you used to. That one beat is everything. The capitalist, and this word has always felt slightly wrong to me, but stay with the idea. The capitalist isn't someone who stopped feeling. They didn't trade their way into emotional numbness. The sting of a stop-out is the same sting. The pull toward revenge trading after a bad morning is the same pull it always was. The difference is they've sat with it enough times that they recognize it for what it is: weather, something that moves through without requiring a response. They feel the urge to double down after a loss, and they watch it the way you watch clouds. Present, acknowledged, not acted on. They've also stopped needing any single trade to mean something. One trade inside 1,000 trades barely registers as information. Not as a concept. They've actually felt that, because they've been through enough sessions, enough months, enough slow stretches where nothing worked and fast stretches where everything did, to watch the math do its work across time. The edge shows up, not in any individual trade, across all of them. That only comes from time, not from the right video. So what do you do with all of this? Because if you're watching this and recognizing yourself somewhere in these stages, and most people watching will recognize something, there's one question that matters more than any question about your entries, your system, or your position sizing. It's a question about that 2-second window, the one right after the trade closes, before the story starts. So where are you? Sit with the actual answer for a moment. Not the answer that sounds good, not the stage you feel like you're close to reaching, the one that's honest right now, this week, today. Because if you're still in the place where a bad trade makes you question whether you're cut out for this, that's information, not a verdict, not evidence of anything permanent. Just information about where the work actually is. The question isn't how do I get to the next stage faster? The question is, what am I still needing the market to tell me? And that question doesn't have an answer you find in a strategy. It has an answer you find in the 2 or 3 seconds after a trade closes, before your mind starts constructing the story of what it means. In that gap between the close and the interpretation, there's something worth paying attention to. It's small, easy to miss, but it's the only place any of this actually changes.